What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Bolts Breakdown. Bryan Burns, beat writer for TampaBayLightning.com. Recher 95.3 WDAE. It's a beautiful day here in Tampa Bay. Unfortunately, the Bolts are not here. They're in Detroit, and I think everybody would prefer to be in Tampa Bay rather than Detroit. Some history possibly tonight if the Lightning pick up a W against the Wings. We'll break that game down here in a little bit, but let's look back at the really good performance on Monday night, Burnsy. You go north of the border. It's a battle against the Toronto Maple Leafs and, the Atlantic Division rivals, and you know that Toronto was kind of ready and willing to kind of leave it all out there to give their best performance against the Bolts. But in my mind, one of the most complete performances I think we've seen from the Lightning all year.
Yeah, I really like that win, and it reminded me of going back to the loss at Boston where the Lightning were pretty much dominated, lost that game 4-1, and after the game, Louis Domingue, who was really the only reason the game was that close, we were interviewing him, and he said something that I thought was pretty interesting at the time. He said, we need to come out and beat teams, dominate teams, and show teams why we are the best team in the NHL. And I think they did that. I feel like they had that mentality when they went into that Toronto game. I really feel like they wanted to play well. They wanted to kind of send a message to the Torontos of the world, to the Bostons of the world that, there's a reason why we're 15, 17 points clear of the rest of the NHL right now. There's a reason why we've been in first place in the NHL standings for pretty much the whole season. There's a reason why this team is flirting with history right now as maybe the most wins or most points ever in an NHL season. So I really felt like they took that mentality into that game. Like you said, it was pretty much a complete 60-minute effort. Other than one kind of rush that Austin Matthews got and made an unbelievable play.
That was pretty. You got to give him credit.
Yeah, he did it. Braden Point, not really a defenseman, was the one guy back trying to do what he could do. Got crossed up a little bit. Those things happened. The final goal, whatever, it was 6-1. The game was over.
You feel bad for Vazzy.
You feel really bad for Vasilevsky because that increases. He was up at the top at the save percentage in the NHL. Now he's like 1/100th of a point behind Ben Bishop. It's pretty funny. It's like Ben Bishop .932.
He's having a heck of a year, Bishop.
Yeah, Vazzy .931. So maybe Vazzy his stayed at .931. His save percentage. Maybe he could have got it down to or up to .932 if they had not let that goal in at the end.
I'm sure they're texting each other. They know where it's at. Yeah, those buddies, right?
And it's funny because like Vasilevsky's save percentage right now would be, if the season ended right now, would be the best in franchise history.
Crazy.
Which would also, Ben Bishop holds that record. It's like .926 Bishop or Vazzy's at .931 right now. So it's pretty interesting just to see how those two guys, even when they're on different teams, are still kind of battling back and forth for those top numbers in the league. But like you said, really, really good performance in Toronto. You want to see them continue that in Detroit with another sound effort. And they've got some big games coming up.
Yeah, they do.
With Washington 3 more times. We're going to see the Caps for the first time this weekend on Saturday. Got 2 more games against Boston. I think those are also statement games for this team. Got another one against Toronto. So you want to just see that same effort in those big games.
Without a doubt. Bryan Burns, Recher here with you. Follow Bryan on Twitter at BBurnsNHL. You can follow me at Recher. As always, we want to hear from you here on Bolts Breakdown. Very interactive show. We're going to give you the numbers next week of some of the kind of early season digits and stats from what we've seen so far this year. And a lot of it is just all from you guys, the views, the shares. We want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Like Lisa Christophic watching from Maryland. Thank you so much. Chris, Coffee and Bolts from Hawaii. We love you, man. Thank you so much. Bobby, we'll get to your question here in a minute. I know you're watching from Brazil. Jerry from Bradenton. Steve, thank you so much for the kind words. And our good buddy Tommy Larson from Stockholm, Sweden. Man, he does not miss out. Quick question from Bobby Dignard in Brazil. Regarding Callahan sitting so much, are they resting him for the playoffs so they can leverage his experience? And if so, what spot would he take in the lineup during the playoffs? I think you're looking at a rotation of him, probably Matthew Joseph and Adam Murney, probably those 3 guys. Danik Martel would probably be 4th on that list. I'm sure.
I don't think you'll see Martel
in the
playoffs unless there's some injury
exactly. So,
and even then, you might even bring up, there's Alex Barr-Boulay. Obviously, the Crunch are still going to be playing, but you never know if they're going to, some of those guys might be available later on if their playoff run, comes to an end a little bit earlier than the Lightning. Some of those guys can come and maybe just add a little bit of depth piece.
Yeah.
But yeah, I see Callahan. I definitely think that I know he hasn't played a whole lot of late, but I think he is obviously a great energy guy. I think he does a lot of the intangible things. I expect to see him in the playoffs. I think maybe to start off, it'll continue to be Joseph
and Ernie,
in those spots, and we've seen Yanni Gord slide down into the fourth line. I think that's a pretty good combination there.
For sure.
I like what that fourth line can bring, and Cedric Paquette obviously with the 2 goals in Toronto, and that line's been really big for the Lightning of late. So I don't know if you necessarily want to mess with the good thing that they've got going on there, but I really think that you've got Callahan back there just waiting, and you can plug him in whenever he's needed, and I think he's going to give you a lot of energy and a great effort.
We always want to hear from you. If you have any questions like Bobby and Steve, go ahead, put them there at the bottom screen. We also want you to let us know where you're watching Bolts Breakdown from. We'll shout you out. Also, share this on your Facebook. Let us know that you shared it. We're trying to spread the word. Now that the playoffs are going to be here in the next couple of weeks, we want to have as many Bolts fans involved with Bolts Breakdown as possible. So, again, put your where you're watching from. Share this on your Facebook, and if you have any questions, let us know. Will Callahan be next year? Steve Gresham wants to know, and if I was a betting man, I'd say no, Bernsey. But you're definitely going to have to move some kind of contracts. Braden Point's coming up. You kind of have an eye on the future. That's what this team does. So I wouldn't be surprised after this year, some of those middle guys. We talked about this with Eric Erlinson yesterday on Ron and Ian Show. If you missed that, ronandian.com. You're starting to see in the next year, 2, 3 years, those middle guys, the Palat, the Killorn, the Callahan, the Johnson, like – sometimes you're gonna have to move 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 of those guys to sign Braden Point, to extend Andrei Vasilevsky, to pay the Sergachevs and the Chernaks, guys that aren't part of that big time core. You probably won't see here in the next couple of years.
Yeah, well, I mean, Palat and Johnson, they're locked up for a while now.
Yeah,
I think going into like 23 and 24, but obviously, they have, kind of not modified
no trade clauses,
no trades. You can work around those things if that were something in the future. Callahan, I don't know. I was looking at Cap Friendly the other day, and he's the second highest paid forward on the team.
5.8, right,
for this season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's right behind Stamkos, and Kucherov's kicks in next year. Braden Point, the lowest paid forward on this team.
Think about
now.
that.
He's making like $670,000 this year.
And don't worry about it, because we've had a lot of people ask on Bolts Breakdown before. Oh, are they going to be able to sign Braden Point? They wouldn't have signed Yanni Gord before Braden Point if they, you know what I mean? When you're talking about priority-wise, Braden Point's a more important member to this team than Yanni Gord. Not taking anything away from Yanni, but Braden Point's an all-star. He's a former all-star. He was on the fringe this year.
Should have been an all-star this year.
Yeah, exactly. He's one of the best two-way players in all of hockey. So, in my opinion, you don't make the deal for Gord unless you have an eye, a sight on the future of, hey, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to lock Braden Point up. So, if anything, whatever this organization has done in the last couple of years should give you some just relief and just a belief that they're going to get it done. They've done it with everybody else, even when a lot of people thought Stammer wasn't going to be able to re-sign, and how are they going to be able to deal with the Kucherov contract? They were able to do all that. I wouldn't be worried, and I'd be confident that they'll be able to retain Braden Point for a reasonable price for not just him, but for the team as well.
Yeah, I mean, Braden Point obviously is going to come back. He's going to re-sign.
He wants to stay here too.
And as far as Callahan, I think it's just a matter of can the economics work. I mean, I think they'd like to have him here.
Maybe you restructure the deal?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know how that works if they're able to do that. But
see it in football. I don't know how often you see it in hockey.
I know, he's such a big presence inside the locker room. He's a huge part of their leadership group. He has such a strong voice in the locker room. Like we said earlier, there's so many intangibles that he brings, but I don't think you can pay a fourth line winger that's in and out of the lineup whatever million it is.
But that's the hard thing about Callahan, and that's the reason ultimately why he got traded to the Lightning, because his play dipped when he was playing with the Rangers, and it was he wanted $5.5 million or $6 million, and they were only going to give him $5.5 million, and it just didn't work out. And then it was his production dipped, but his leadership, and it's hard to quantify leadership and off ice and the impact that he has on the team, and ultimately that's why there was an impasse between he and the Rangers front office, and then eventually he got traded to the Tampa Bay Lightning. But something I mentioned, and if you don't listen to Lightning Power Play, you should go to TBL Power Play over on the iHeartRadio app. Lightning coverage all the time. Burnsy's on there. I'm on there. I got my show Light the Lamp, and we're on with Greg Linelli sometimes for our roundtable discussion. I'll be on there Saturday. Probably Burnsy. You'll be
I haven't got a text yet, so
we're going to try to call him up to the big time. But we've done the Lightning Roundtable with Greg Linnelli before, and one of the things that I talked about on my show this week, Brian, was I gave 15 reasons why fans should just sit back and relax and enjoy this Bolts team, because there's still people out here, whether it's because you're Bucks fans or Rays fans, there's just that constant negativity, like, let's poke holes in the Lightning. Like, you can't do that. This is one of the best teams the NHL has ever seen. You're on a historic pace. You have the MVP, arguably the MVP in the league, the best goaltender in the world, and the two biggest reasons why, in my opinion, why they are so good on a night-in, night-out basis. One, their defensive players, their stars, have zero egos. You look at Hedman and McDonough, they're not cocky, they're not brash, they're leaders. They're quiet, humble guys. They go out, they play in all situations, and they're out there leading the young players like Sergachev and Chernak, and they're bigging everybody else up. They're bringing them, raising their level up. And the other reason is Ryan Callahan, in my opinion. He's a fourth liner, but he's a former captain in this league. He's an assistant captain every time he's on the ice, and he's a fourth line player making a good amount of money. He wants to play. He's a competitor. Never complains. We see him at morning skate, even days when he's not playing. He's smiling, he's laughing, he's still being a leader. That mindset from your defenseman and from your fourth line leader that doesn't play every night, everybody else falls in line. There's no egos with this Tampa Bay Lightning team. And I think when you have that much talent, it's crazy to think, and I understand people go, all right, it's sports, they have to have egos, but none to the fact where it's a detriment to the other players on the team. And you've seen this team, you've traveled on the road, you've been in the locker room as I have. Do you kind of echo those sentiments where these guys are just so humble that that's the reason why you don't worry about them getting too big for their britches or getting too egotistical where they're not focused at the goal at hand?
Yeah, I think that this is just a group that just likes to play with one another. They enjoy being around one another. They like being in the locker room. They like playing games together. They like doing stuff outside of the locker room. It's just a really good group. There's a ton of chemistry in the room, and that's the main thing, I think, that you see with this group, and it's kind of what happened at the trade deadline is, this group doesn't want to be broken up. They don't want a piece gone here, a piece shipped there. They don't want to bring in a bunch of outsiders, newcomers that they have to integrate. Although the players that they have been able to get in over the last couple of years have fit in perfectly.
Seamlessly.
Yeah, they've just been able to integrate within the group, and I think a lot of that is the leadership group, just bringing guys in, letting them know, what the standard is, the coaching staff as well. This is the standard we have here. And it just seems like you have a group of guys that really just want to win. They want to do whatever it takes to win and put all the other stuff to the side, the personal accolades, the awards, the accomplishments. They just want to win hockey games. You're seeing that this year with the number of wins they've put up. They know what happened last year. They've been so close the last 4 or 5 seasons to getting to the ultimate goal. Last year they thought they were probably there. Lost those 2 games to Washington, watched it slip away. Like, they don't want that to happen again. They're trying to do everything they can to kind of right that wrong from last year, and I think that's why you're seeing the success that they've had so far this season.
And I think some of the best organizations in sports, you see it with the New England Patriots and the San Antonio Spurs and so many good organizations that have sustained success. It's one voice from the owner all the way down to the front office, to the head coach, to your best players, to your fourth-line players. And look no further than the Tampa Bay Lightning when you look at Vinnick, Brisebois, Yzerman,
make no
Murray,
mistake,
Cooper.
It starts with Vinnick.
What
he's been able to do since he's come in
incredible.
And just put good people in positions and they're in top positions, then let those good people do their job. I think that's the big thing. I'm a Washington Redskins fan. I've watched Dan Snyder do the exact opposite.
I'm a Giants fan, so I'm seeing that train wreck going on right now. So
it really does start at the top. Like, Dan Snyder comes in and has to have his thumbprints on every single thing that the Redskins do, and it's just been one mess after another.
Dallas Cowboys, same way.
It's a team that is decidedly mediocre for his entire tenure, and it's so frustrating as a fan to watch.
And another thing I brought up on my show was that, talking about that, and I think that the Lightning, and this is not taking anything away from John Cooper, and I was erroneously misquoted on Lightning Lunch the other day on Twitter, and everybody was having an upheaval saying that I didn't think John Cooper was doing a good job this year. I couldn't have been further for the truth. I said I didn't think he was going to win the Jack Adams Award this year for the top coach in the league, because a lot of times it doesn't go to the coach of the best team. It goes to the coach of the team that is the most surprising team or the biggest overachievers. I think you agree with that. And then you look at a guy like Barry Trotz. I mean, you go from one of the worst defensive teams to the best defensive team, and you after losing your best player, it's hard not to give it to a guy like that. So it's not taking anything away from Cooper. And the other thing I said is I think Cooper has the best supporting staff around him when it comes to the assistant coaches. Look at the special teams. Look at the job that Jeff Halpern has done with Steven Stamkos and all the other guys in the face-off dot.
Yeah,
How
they're
about
now like top 5?
It's incredible. This is a team that was terrible.
Since I've been here, has always been like
even with
bottom
guys,
third.
Even with guys that were notably pretty decent guys with Filppula and Brian Boyle, they were okay, but their percentages didn't match up with how you thought in your head how good they were. How about the job Derek Lalonde has done? How about Todd Richards? How about a guy like Franz Jean being able to keep Vasilevsky ready and getting Louis Domingue? And then, in my opinion, one of the most important people in the entire organization, the guy that's been here longer than anybody, Nigel Kerwin, the video coach. Has been here forever, longer than anybody, I think, with the franchise right now. And how many times do you see a close play where it's an offsides and the Lightning are already all over it, or a play like where they know, okay, we were offsides. Nigel's all over that thing, man. There is such a great just chemistry and harmony with everybody in the organization, and that's a big reason why the Lightning are so good and so consistent on a night-in, night-out basis, because it's not just John Cooper trying to motivate these guys. Everybody has their hand in the pot, and everybody is pushing in the same direction to achieve the ultimate goal, and that's to win the Stanley Cup. All right, that's Brian Burns, beat writer for TampaBayLightning.com. Jay Recher, 95.3 WDAE. We want to hear from you. Where are you watching Bolts Breakdown from? Put it there at the bottom of the screen. Also, put the word shared on there. Let us know that you shared it on your Facebook. If you have any questions, let us know. And give us a couple likes and loves. We love that as well. What about bringing in the new assistant for the power play? I don't think they need to do that.
Yeah, I mean, the power play has been pretty good. I think more than anything with the coaching staff, and not that the previous coaching staffs weren't cohesive, but I think you bring in Halpern, who's kind of been in the organization for a little bit. He was a scout, then he was helping out Syracuse for a little bit, and he was an assistant there. So I think he knows the makeup of the organization, what the expectations
and the players
are.
Yep.
Derek Lalonde comes in, and he's been a buddy of Cooper's for a while now, and he's had great success at the college level and at the AHL level. And he's brought like a really good energy to the group. It's just such a cohesive coaching staff, and you can't say like Halpern does the power play, Richards does the penalty.
Everybody,
really everybody kind of has their hands. They've all kind of tinkered with everything, and this is kind of the result that you're seeing right now.
Bobby and Jose, thank you so much for sharing. We do appreciate that, and I'm with you, man. It's just the entire coaching staff working together. They're all getting and working in that same direction, and that's the big reason why I think this is a team that can just really hurt you in so many different ways. And you look at it the other night, I was watching the game and then going to the NBC Sports Network afterwards, and they were talking about, what the hard thing is, and thank you, Danielle, for sharing this all the way up in Spring Hill. It's kind of crazy, Burnsy, that, if they score like they did against Toronto the other night, they scored those dirty playoff goals. And we mentioned that, last year it was tough. They went on that little bit of a skid and didn't score in the last couple games against the Washington Capitals. This team doesn't just score those pretty tic-tac-toe goals on the power play. They can score the dirty goals. The other night, you get 2 from Tyler Johnson and 2 from Seti Paquette out of all people. We've seen the fourth line at times carry this team. We've seen the defensemen sometimes carry this team. And I think the big difference between last year and this year, and that's probably the biggest cause of concern for a lot of people, is how is this team different? And it's the President's Trophy team winner last year, I believe, right? I think they had the most points last year, Lightning. Yeah. It was in Nashville? Nashville, okay. Best team in the East.
Remember they hung 3 banners last year, even though they did win a Stanley Cup.
I don't know why teams do that. All right, but number 1 team in the East, though. Okay, that's what I was
first in the East.
Okay, so they're going to be first in the East again probably this year, and probably the President's Trophy winner this year too. But the big difference between last year and this year, and thank you, Joe, for sharing in Palm Harbor, is I think the roles are more defined this year. You know who the physical players are. You kind of have an idea of what the power play is going to look like, what the penalty kill is going to look like. I think just having Matthew Joseph and having Eric Chernak and having Anthony Cirelli for a full year and having Miller and McDonough for a full year, I think guys know now. You know what your first power play unit's going to look like. You know what your second power play unit's going to look like. You know what your PK is looking like. When Callahan's in, Callahan's out. You know Cirelli in his relationship with Killorn. You know Cedric Paquette, and then you know where you're getting that thump on the back line from a guy like Eric Chernak. So I think when you look at it, the roles are more defined this year, and I think when people ask why is it going to be different this year, I think that's a huge reason why.
I think there's just a little bit more depth this year, too.
Yeah, and the maturation of the
You're
team.
adding like a JT Miller, you're adding a Ryan McDonough to the blue line, which I know they had him last year, but
it's different when you
Cooper's talked about how they came in, but they had an impact, but maybe not the impact that they're having this year.
Yeah.
Going through the off season and having those two guys has been a really big difference maker for this team. And then you're seeing Seti Paquette with 12 goals this season, tying his career high from his rookie year. You've got guys like Matthew Joseph that you didn't have on the team last year, Anthony Sorelli, who's continues to be the third line center as he was last year when he came up, but just much more confident in his role, giving so much more responsibility from the coaching staff. You look at shorthanded time on ice around the league. Anthony Sorelli is third among forwards.
And tied for first in shorthanded goals, too.
Yeah, actually he's tied for second now.
Oh, somebody scored.
Someone got their fifth. I forget who it was, but I don't think it was Grabner because he's been up there for a while.
Jankowski.
Yeah.
From the Flames, yeah.
Yeah.
It was them three that were tied with 4 for it seemed like 2 months.
Yeah, it's been a while, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was Jankowski that scored.
So, yeah, more responsibility for him. Adam Ernie taking a step up in his development. You really can't, Chernak, you really can't discount the impact that he's had on the blue line. And now you're seeing the back end. You're seeing them, participating more offensively. They're getting more. The Ottawa game a couple games ago when they had the 4 goals. This game against Toronto, there was an assist from a defenseman on each one of those goals. You're seeing the defenseman get more involved in the scoring. You're seeing the third and the fourth line getting a little bit more involved in the scoring now. So it's just a really balanced team. It's a really deep team. I think it's a little deeper than last year. I think they have more scoring options than they did last year. Can't discount the penalty kill either, and where they were last year, like 28th in the league in the regular season, and now I think they're still first in the league. So a lot of differences from last year to this year, a lot of little tweaks that have really added up to what we're seeing right now. And the faceoffs, like you talked about, I mean, they're top 5 in the league last year or this year, where they've always been in the bottom half of the league.
So impressive for Steven Stamkos too. I mean, this is the best faceoff percentage he's had in his career, and that's why I think he's having arguably the best all-around season that he's had in the NHL. Brian Briesman is the other guy for the PR staff. This is Brian Burns. I don't know why I just said that. I don't know why I have Briesman on the brain though. Shared from Ocala, thank you, Marion Roy Stokes. John Zaleski, go Bolts. John Ruta has looked pretty good, Kyle. We agree with you. Jen Werdan shared from Temple Terrace. Look at all you people sharing. Chico from Tampa. All right, good stuff, man. Thank you so much. Leslie in Jonesboro, Arkansas. So keep sharing this on your Facebook. Let us know where you're watching from, and if you have any questions. Let's look forward to tonight's game, Burnsy. Yep, Brian Burns is his name. Detroit Red Wings. I mean, it seems like they just played him because they did on Saturday night.
Yeah, 5 days ago.
And now they're right back at it. But they are at Little Caesars Arena tonight on the road for the final game before they come home and play the defending champions, the Washington Capitals, on Saturday night. Which are 3 keys to victory for the Bolts tonight?
Yeah, number 1 is kind of what you just alluded to, like no looking ahead. This is a
Don't
team
look at that schedule.
They've dominated 14 in a row.
That's crazy. I had to make sure that was right, but 14 wins in a row.
Yeah, against Detroit. Wow. Storied Detroit franchise. That's the most any team in the NHL has ever won in a row against Detroit. So the Lightning
That's incredible.
That distinction. So they're trying to go for the sweep for 3 straight seasons now.
Go for the job
against Detroit, but can't look ahead. We talked about some of the big games this team has ahead of them. They've got 1 against Toronto. They've got a big game on Saturday. Their first of 3 against Washington over this last little stretch. 2 more against Boston. So you don't want to look ahead, look past this Detroit team, kind of anticipating that home big-time home matchup against Washington this Saturday. So want to take care of business in Detroit. Number 2 for me is just keep your eyes on Thomas Vanek. It seems like this guy, for whatever reason, he just kills the Lightning. He had a power play goal the last time the Lightning and Detroit matched up 5 days ago. Came right at the end of the period. It was a little bit of got Detroit back into the game a little bit. But looking at his numbers, 29 goals, 47 points in 48 career games against the Lightning.
That's really good.
That's a lot. So keep your eyes on him. Try to eliminate him from getting on the score sheet. And then 3rd for me is just continuing with the fast starts. We've seen this with the Lightning of recent games. They've started really quickly. They started quickly in the Toronto game. They're 27-0-1 when they score 2 or more goals in the first period, like they did against the Maple Leafs the other game. They've done so in 10 of their last 16 games. They've scored 2 or more goals. So really like how they've come out focused. They've come out wanting to overwhelm teams at the beginning of games, wanting to dominate teams at the beginning of games. And with this being, this is a Lightning team that's had a target on their back for quite a while now. Teams are gunning for them. They're going to give them their best shot because they want to see how they match up against what is the undisputed best team in the NHL right now. So if you can go up 2-0 on a team, in the first 10, 20 minutes of a game, that is a huge demoralizer because you want to go in and see how you play, and next thing you know, you're down 2-0 to the league's best team. You're thinking, well, here we go. We're about to get dominated. So I think that plays into the Lightning's favor. I really want to see them continuing with those fast starts because that'll really serve them well going into the postseason.
Corey Brown joined the show. What up, Corey? What's going on? Make sure you share this on your Facebook, Corey. You got a lot of comments. I'm sure all your people want to see. What are you talking about, man? Why are you making all these comments on Bolts Breakdown? We love you, man. We appreciate you watching all the time. My one guy to watch tonight, Anthony Manta, all of them, whatever you want to call them. But you see a little skirmish with him and Eric Chernak in that last game where he kind of hit Chernak from behind, a little cross-check, and Chernak followed him around. I don't know if you saw it because you were at the game. Did you see it?
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, I was watching at home, and I was like, look at all the way, Chernak was following him and then messing with him in front of the net. That's why you got to love Chernak, man. He is a defender of not just the goalie, but also sticking up for himself. And Mantha's a guy that's, still a young player in this league, but trying to kind of establish himself. So that's a battle that I'm going to keep my eye on tonight. Last question we'll take, April Trimble. I personally think Louis deserves to be a starter next year. That's a big topic of conversation we've been talking about this week, Bernsey. I think with the flux of certain teams, when you look at Carolina and Calgary, I know Arizona, but Calgary and Carolina, the two teams that really stick out to me. Buffalo, another one. I think you look at the job Louis Dominguez done this year, and if I'm one of those teams, I'm going to give the Lightning call after the season and go, what does it take to get Louis Domingue? And there's Ingram's down there at Syracuse, and there's a couple
He's
other.
in Orlando right now.
He's in Orlando, excuse me.
Yeah.
There's a couple other guys in the pipeline that maybe could be who knows? Maybe Eddie Pasquale might be. You never know. But what do you think about Louis Domingue? I know some people want him back as the backup next year, but when you're playing as good as he is, it's hard if you're another NHL team to not try to give the Lightning a call, see if he's available.
Yeah,
right?
I think he's warranted some looks from around the league. Maybe he's earned himself a pretty good contract. I think the Lightning would love to have him back. I think
for sure.
On Louis, does he want to?
What does he want?
That's going to be a tough decision for him because being around the locker room, he is really a big part of the team. Guys love him. He's a really good character in the locker room.
Man.
A little bit of a jokester, but he has a really good relationship, especially with some of the younger guys like him and Anthony Cirelli have a real good relationship. I think it goes back to their time together on the Syracuse Crunch. Yanni Gord, all those. He seems to have a really good relationship with the younger guys. And I think that helps them. He's an established NHL netminder, and for them to come into the league last year or whenever they came in, whichever player it might be, and to have kind of a veteran guy or a guy that's been around the block for a little bit to kind of integrate them into the room, that's a big deal. So I think it's more going to be on Louis. That does he want to be a starter? I know he wants to be a starter. Obviously, that's not going to happen here in Tampa Bay as long as Vasilevsky's healthy, because Vazzy's going to be the starter here for a long time, and rightfully so. But I think it's going to be more on him. Like, do I want to go be a starter somewhere, maybe make a little bit more money? Going to stay here, probably make a little bit less money,
but have a chance
be
to
have a chance to continue winning. That's gonna that's a tough decision. I don't know what I would do in that situation. You got to remember, he likes it here. He wants to be here. Sometimes when you go somewhere else, it can be really good, but it might be really bad too.
Yeah.
You never know, what you have until
it's gone.
It's gone.
The grass isn't always greener on the other side.
Exactly. So, if you have a good thing here, so there's something to be said for just sticking it out and seeing it through and being happy.
A lot of people asking about Tyler Johnson going to Seattle next year. Still way too early to talk about that, right? Like 2 years away, right?
Expansion draft. Come on, guys. Let's just
2
focus
years
on the present instead of what's going to happen.
Relax. When we get closer, trust me, we will break it down because that's what we do here on Bolts.
The roster could look totally different.
Exactly. You never know.
So, there's no point in speculating.
Relax,
right now.
people. I know it's the natural thing to think, is a team in Seattle, the kid from Spokane's going to go home. Hey, why not?
That's not going to really play into. I mean, unless Seattle really wants to go out and get Tyler Johnson and makes a deal to go out and get him because he's from that area. I don't know, but I don't think the Lightning are going to leave him exposed just so he can go back to his hometown or his home state. It's not even his hometown. He's not really from. It's a pretty big state out there from what I've heard. So I think he's on the east side of it. Seattle's on the west side of it. I know you're closer, but.
That's like, hey, you're from Fort Lauderdale. You a Lightning fan?
Yeah.
But you are, though, because you're watching Bullets Breakdown. Bryan Burns, beat writer for TampaBayLightning.com. Make sure you follow him on Twitter at BBurnsNHL. You can follow the team at TV Lightning. Go to TampaBayLightning.com for all the best news and notes. You got a story coming up today, or no, they're on the road? Or?
Yeah, on the road, so we'll just focus on the game.
Well, yeah, we'll wait for Kaylee Chelios if she has any
Tomorrow
news.
we'll have some more coverage once the team gets back. Not sure if they're going to have a practice or not. I would doubt it.
Yeah, probably not.
Back from the road, but we'll have a little bit more on the. But yeah, there's a really good on our Instagram page. There's a really good. Yesterday the guys practiced. And it was Braden Point's birthday.
Oh yeah, and today's JT Miller's birthday. So
yeah.
happy birthday,
So I wonder
boys!
if he'll get the shaved cream pie in the face too. And that's we're talking about Ryan Callahan. That's another.
That's him.
He's the one. Right there in the mix of all that. Getting guys loose, and you could tell after. Like Pointer had a pretty good comment where he said, "Like it's the third year in a row they've got me. So next year I'm really going to make sure to pay attention." When my birthday.
Next year, I'm thinking that he's hoping that they have a day off. Jay Recher, follow me on Twitter at Jay Recher. Follow the station at 95.3 WDAE. Go to 95.3 WDAE.com for the best Bolts coverage. The game will be on Fox Sports Sun tonight, so make sure you go check it out there. And then also, I think it's on Fox Sports Sun. Right?
I believe.
I hope so. I haven't seen anything different.
Sometimes I sit down at the TV and I'm like, I got to search a little bit because I don't know.
It's on NBC Sports Network or on Fox Sports Sun, one of the two. I'm sorry that we didn't look beforehand, but I know 100% it's going to be on News Radio WFLA up the dial on our sister station. We'll be back in action next Tuesday, I think.
Monday
back home, right?
Monday. We got Saturday home game against the Caps. Monday home game against Arizona.
There you go. We'll be right there at Amalie Arena. That's Bryan. I'm Jay. We'll see you next time right here on Bolts Breakdown.